In today's episode, we are joined by Greg Mannarino. Now, the last time we had Greg on, he was saying that he was anticipating events that would bring the price of crude oil higher. And he said the Fed was going to be masking inflation in energy, specifically in rising crude, at the old look over here, not over here trick. I think within about 24 to 48 hours after our conversation, that's when the Suez Canal happened. And all these comments started appearing. Whoa, that was so odd. And, there's been a lot of events like that that have, moved crude higher. And I never heard someone discuss this before you and I spoke last. And so I've been really watching that unfold. And so for everyone listening, comment down below. Greg rules right there down below. If you aren't subscribed to Greg's channel, Greg's not only very informative, has a lot of interesting things to say, he's also a very funny guy. So if you want to be entertained too, we'll put the link to his YouTube right there down below so you can sign up to that. Hit the like button on either side to send this out into the YouTube universe. Last but not least, shout out to our channel sponsor, Vizsla Silver. Thank you for being our mining stock sponsor on our channel. And it's good to see you, Greg.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
So did you know that when we talked last time, I think it was about 24 hours later, the Suez Canal happened?
None of this stuff surprises me at all. I follow crude oil very closely. I have for many, many years. I've explained to people that crude oil is the lifeblood of this entire thing. The military industrial complex depends on the price of crude oil being high. They will do things you cannot believe to keep the price of crude oil propped up. They'll whatever they got to do. Bomb a refinery, block the canal, sink a ship, fire missiles over into Tel Aviv, whatever they got to do to keep crude propped up. And this mechanism is something we watch over and over and over again. Whenever I see crude oil drop, I get chills down my spine because I realize some event is going to happen to keep it propped up. And this is like, not just pulling this out of a hat. If anyone looks back on events that have affected crude oil, it always happens when crude drops, not when it's going higher, always when it drops. So watch that, keep your eyes on crude oil. Again, the entire energy sector of the market depends on it. The entire financial sector depends on crude oil getting propped up. The investment banks are leveraged beyond their eyeballs in crude oil. So they use these mechanisms to, push the market higher. They keep it in their back pocket. It's an astonishing thing to see, but no one talks about it. I'm probably the only guy that I know of that watches it like this and have nailed it to the wall. I mean, repeatedly. And I'm waiting for something, and I've been waiting for this for a while. Another event is going to occur that is going to prop up crude above 70. And I think this is going to happen relatively soon. I expect a Middle East event to occur. Again, this is not going to be by accident. It's already thought out. So it will happen. It's just a matter of when they're going to use it. Whenever we see crude drop, again, keep your eyes on these things. Watch for events to occur to prop it back up. And then it pushes the market higher with it. It's crazy.
Okay, so I'd love for you to just explain. I know you have a little bit more, but for someone that's unfamiliar with that thought process a little bit, so why is it that they want to prop crude up? I know you mentioned that they're levered, to the teeth, but can you explain a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, the best way I can describe it is what I just said. It's the lifeblood of the military industrial complex. Investment in crude oil is astronomical. And I literally mean that. If you look at leveraged bets on a crude oil, it's in at face value, and anyone can look this up here, and this is what they're allowing us to know. The investment banks have over $3 trillion invested in the price of crude oil going higher. Now, these are not dollar for dollar. Whenever these are leveraged bets, and they have multiple layers underneath it. I mean, who knows what this number actually is? If you look at derivatives, it's beyond. So again, and they never lose. These banks will never lose. And they're going to keep this mechanism going because it works. It's a very simple mechanism. If crude falls, believe me, it's a phone call away. Fire missiles into Tel Aviv, bomb a refinery, set up a pipeline, disruption, block the canal, whatever they got to do. Keep that price of crude higher. It's astonishing to me how many people miss these things, but because they think, oh, it's just okay, this is just normal. No, it's not normal. This is a global thing. It's the central banks running the show. They are the government of the world, and nothing is what it seems. It's all fake. So anyway, that's really what it comes down to, understanding that the price of crude oil is manipulated more so than anything else, even more than gold and silver, which are manipulated beyond the point of ridiculousness, just to keep this market propped up. If crude oil were to plunge and stay lower, this whole market would crater. So that's how important it is to the market, and making the rich richer and the poor poorer. That's really what it's all about.
So let's talk a little bit about the market. There's still the same, I would say, divide where a lot of people think it's going to crash any day. And, you've talked about how at this point in time, the money printing is really going to create even more of this reflation trade until, as you often state, until the Federal Reserve buys everything. So give us an idea of your views on today's market, on today's stock market, and where you see it moving forward. Obviously, there's been a lot of weird rhetoric too with taxes, which will crash it here and there. There'll be a sell-off one day. But give us an idea of where you think this market's headed.
Well, what do we know? It always comes down to what we know. The central banks, the Fed, is going to continue to run their debt creation machine, which I don't think many people understand how this works. The Federal Reserve is issuing debt through one door and then buying it through another. This is an inflation creation machine. Suppressing rates is forcing cash into the stock market. It has created a hyper bubble. And this machine is going to continue to run faster and faster. The Federal Reserve is creating artificial demand and distortions across the spectrum of asset classes. So these distortions, including a stock market, which continues to make higher moves, is going to continue until it doesn't. And, I'm not in the business of trying to speculate when it's not going to. I'm in the business of staying on the right side of it. That's it. I don't call tops. I don't call bottoms. I just look at the market and say, okay, and not just the stock market. I'm looking at everything, all aspects of this market, trying to keep myself and people that follow my work on the right side. That's all that matters to me. We understand it's all crazy. It's all distorted. It's all fixed. It's all rigged. It's all twisted. But okay, great. We know that, and that's our strength. So we stay ahead of the curve. We know the Fed is going to continue to buy it all. They are determined to become the lender and buyer of last resort, period, the end. This is who they are right now. As we watch the middle class vanish, something I warned would happen from over a decade ago, the creation of a two-tier society, extreme haves, extreme have-nots. It's in our face, and it's very sad to see what is going on here. And we haven't had one single piece of good economic news in years. And the more bad economic news we get, the higher the market will go. The moment we get something good, really, the market will crater, because the Fed will be forced, maybe, or the market will perceive that the Fed will stop doing what they're doing. And they have no intention of stopping it. They will continue to print. They will continue to run their inflation machine, devalue the dollar. Look, a weaker dollar is very stock market positive, because it takes more weaker dollars to buy anything, even shares of stock. It destroys the consumer, steals their purchasing power. Suppressed rates have robbed the middle class blind, or anyone with an interest earning account blind. Even if you have a high yield savings account, you're getting robbed blind by keeping your cash just sitting there doing nothing, because it's not even keeping up remotely with the actual rate of inflation. Everyone knows this, but no one does anything about it. No one says anything about it. This mechanism has been amazingly successful in inflating a massive, monster stock market hyper bubble. And this hyper bubble is going to continue going until it doesn't. Again, I don't pick tops. I don't pick bottoms. I want to just be on the right side of it. Professional traders do not do this. They don't pick tops. They don't pick bottoms. They just look for the trend and they jump in and they stay in it until something changes. Nothing has changed here. other than the fact that I believe that the Fed, despite rhetoric that we've been hearing, that taper, nonsense. They're not going to taper anything. There's no end in sight to it. So this mechanism will continue to hyperinflate the stock market again until it doesn't. It will hyperinflate the housing bubble that we are in. It's an insane scenario. We have a bubble in housing and demand for housing that is off the Richter scale. Meanwhile, you got a Fed buying $40 billion of mortgage-backed securities every month, providing artificial demand. You got to be kidding me. But this is the scenario. This is what's going on. Nothing makes sense, like I said.
So let's talk about the economy instead of the stock market, and let's talk about the dollar. So that I live pretty near you. I'm in southern Utah, and my favorite restaurant, nice restaurant, but they've been serving everything with plastic for a long time. And I said finally to the manager, in a nice way, look, I spend a bunch of money when I come here. It's a nice restaurant. I prefer not to be eating with plastic.
Good
come
for
on, buddy.
You.
And so he said, I'll get this solved here quickly. So we came back a couple of weeks later. I asked him again. They still had plastic. And I said, too much stimulus money going out? And I was kind of joking. And he said, yes, too much stimulus money going out. We've had a dishwasher job posted for months. No one will take it. And you're seeing this everywhere, even where I live in South Utah, nothing ever got shut down. So no one really lost jobs, but now there's help wanted signs everywhere. And this was one of the places that, stayed pretty stable during the lockdowns. And it's because people, I think, have maybe quit more than anything to collect unemployment. I'm not really sure, but you're seeing these help wanted signs everywhere. We've got the dollar, as you said, you believe it's going lower. We've got unemployment going out everywhere, often to people that don't need it. And there are many people that, of course, do need it. And we're in this weird situation where no one really knows what's going to happen. And they're talking about, should we print more money? Should we stop? And I want to get your opinion on the economy and the dollar moving forward, and how you expect the government, the Fed, and the Biden administration, what you expect them to do this year.
Well, they're going to continue what they've been doing. And I explained this from a long time ago. They are creating, or at least attempting to very successfully, a slave society, dependent upon the government. People would rather sit home and collect more money, more than likely, than when they were working. They want people to be satisfied with, sitting on their fat asses, doing nothing, and paying them to stay home. In many, many ways, we have a society that has lost its competitive edge. And that's a shame. I'm an extremely competitive guy. In fact, too competitive. It's unbelievable. But I mean, that keeps me going. And I think we have a society of zombies, and they're being, created deliberately to create this society dependent on massive government being taken care of from cradle to grave. And they're willing to live a mediocre life, in a small apartment or something like that. They don't want to own anything. They don't want to better themselves or anything like that. People aren't go-getters like they used to be just a little while ago. And this is all by design too. People have been lulled into a sense of, I guess, dependency. The nanny state, which we've been seeing for quite a long time here. And that's just the way it's going to go. Again, as the government gets larger. And when I say the government, I'm referring to the Federal Reserve, which is the real government. The Fed runs the show. They control the cash. They are the ones that decide the rules. They create the rules that everyone lives by. Unfortunately, our so-called representatives, they don't represent nobody. They represent the corporate interest, not the regular guy or the regular girl out there. And unfortunately, this trajectory here, in my opinion, is going to get worse. It's going to continue. And I think the worst part of it is, especially on the part of young people I talk to, they like it. They embrace it. Oh, this is fantastic. And I want everything for free. I want the government to take care of me. Okay, fantastic. They should look how this has worked out in around the world in other governments, that have marched into this totally socialistic society or whatever we're experiencing right now. It's some kind of a weird paradigm. But again, it's about growing the government, creating a slave society. And this is going to do what I've been explaining, creating extreme haves and extreme have-nots. I've said this for a decade, and it's in our face right now, middle class getting wiped out. And people are pretty okay with that. They don't even care anymore. And whether they've been lulled into that sense or they're liking it, they're embracing it, I don't know. But all I can say is when I look at this stuff here, to me, I just I say, okay, so where are the opportunities? And they're everywhere for people that have a little bit of a competitive edge. People who are out here looking to take advantage of the situation, they're going to do very, very well as the rest of the people just fall through the cracks. What did we find out? I think it was just yesterday. Personal debt, household debt, at record highs. People continue to borrow and borrow more, and then I don't know what they're doing. They like to live as a debt slave. I guess they do. I can't understand it. The stress of that would drive me out of my mind. I don't owe anybody a dime. Everything I own cash. I own a lot of stuff, and I own it outright, and it makes me feel good. Uh, I've been on the other side of that, where I used to borrow beyond my eyeballs, and I learned the hard way. In fact, I wrote a whole book about it to tell people how to get themselves out of debt. I'm talking about unsecured debt. If you have secured debt, like to a home or something, you're in a lot of trouble. But if you have unsecured debt, you can get yourself out of it relatively simply. Again, if you go to my YouTube blog, I did a whole narrated book on it. I walk people through how to get themselves out of debt. But anyway, but that's what we're seeing right now. The creation of a slave society, people dependent on the government, which is not the government, which is the central banks. And this is a global phenomenon. This isn't just here. This is a worldwide takeover, something else I've warned about for a very, very long time. It's the central banks of the world working in unison to create this slave society dependent on them because they want to be the lenders and buyers of last resort, which gives them enormous power. And it steals it from everywhere else. It's very sad, very, very sad, but it's the truth.
Okay, what do you mean by a worldwide takeover?
Oh, it's real simple. I mean, central banks, they're all doing the same things at the same time. They're issuing epic amounts of debt here and working towards their goal to be the lenders and buyers of last resort. They call the shots. Whoever controls the cash controls the world. And that's just the way it's going here. They have a web. I mean, there are hundreds of central banks around the world, and they're all run by the same entities. And this has been a process that's been going on since the inception of central banking. Nothing is by accident. It's all been thought out. Everything we're seeing now is an effect of something that has been put in place decades ago. So just following that line that trajectory tells us where we are going. Central banks are gaining more power, more control over everything. And wait till this new the digital currencies start getting rolled out here. We know it's coming, and the delay, it's multiple fold. But the issue with this right now is the central banks have all got to get on board at the same time, and they're all going to issue a 100% fiat, 100% digital currency for which they're going to track every single transaction down to the fraction of a cent. It's all going away. There's a whole new set of rules coming, a whole new paradigm. It's right here. It's in our face. And we're watching it unfold. And it's all part of the mechanism, again, that I've been saying would happen for over a decade. It's astonishing to me. And I look back at stuff I was saying, 5, 6, 7 years ago and say, wow, here it is. It's here now. And it actually sends chills throughout my body sometimes. I'm not psychic or anything like that, but I understand trends. Again, I'm a guy who's in this market trading trends. Okay, so you follow the trends of what's happening here on a global scale. Like, for example, crude oil. What are the trends with crude oil? Whenever it falls, they pull off some kind of a false flag event to prop it back up. It's all a game, and nothing is what it seems. I've been explaining this to people for the longest time in those exact words. You probably heard me say that. And I want people to raise their awareness, understand what's really happening. And what do we have? We have the mainstream news outlets out here, reading a script, trying to convince people that what they are seeing with their own eyes is not real. It's crazy. It freaks me out. And that's why I go crazy on my videos and I go, duh. And I just can't believe it sometimes. I really can't.
So I remember it was probably 11 years ago watching like Alex Jones's Endgame, and he talked about a lot of digital dollar, all these, some of the crazy people that want to inject the whole world with what, and it's weird seeing it play out right now. But I kind of had a moment of awakening where Um, I notice when people start to maybe raise their level of awareness a bit about the insidious and deliberate corruption and destruction of freedoms. Sometimes what happens is they get pessimistic to a point where they almost blame them on why they're not successful. Well, the Rockefellers controlled this and the bankers did this. And for me, I'm not sure how it happened, but it kind of spurred a creative sense of urgency. And I think knowing what I've known, sometimes it's a burden, but I do feel that it's made me far more successful than I ever been, because I realized a lot of life is a joke. A lot of life is a lie. And so more importantly, I've got to build my own life, follow my own dreams, build my own career, my own businesses, things I care about. And so in a lot of ways, it's helped me. And I feel like we live in, an actual brainwash, a deliberate brainwash system. And, that's the matrix, right? And we can talk at great length about that. And what happens is we get programmed for a mold of not only mediocrity, where we never achieve our own potential, but where we never even have any sense of freedom and self-worth. And I want to talk a little bit about that mindset, because I think it's important. And you're someone that's been calling the shots on this larger picture for a long time. So what do you think are the most important philosophies for us to break out of the invisible chains, and to essentially reprogram our minds, take control of our lives, and ensure our own freedoms?
Well, you summed that up really great. It's absolutely true. People are programmed from a very, very young age to establish certain established norms, I guess, or expectations, and then they're lulled into this sense of they can't do anything about it. You just kind of got to go along with it because there are these entities or these people are too powerful, and I can't go against it. But it's worse than that. I think it starts with, again, the indoctrination of the parents. Okay, most parents have been fully indoctrinated. They pass on that indoctrination to their children at a very, very young age, from the food, what they shouldn't be eating, high sugar things, and creating diabetes, infected children. This bleeds off to their adulthood, so they become slaves to the pharmaceutical companies, creating health problems. Again, this is all a sense of that right from the get-go. Consumerism, causing people to borrow. I remember when I was in college, I had no job. I had nothing. Actually, I did have a job. I was working, believe it or not, as a fitness trainer at the time, making like nothing, part time. And I was getting credit card offers from everyone, and I was taking them, and I was borrowing from, like, you could not believe, buried myself in all kinds of debt. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're giving me all this, these credit cards here, 4 or 5 of them. I must be okay. And I buried myself in debt, not understanding what I was doing to myself at the time. But again, this is what they do. It starts from an extremely young age, and it just gets re-indoctrinated and reestablished in people's minds. And when they become adults, they become, again, zombies. And they don't know what to do. Because what do? You go to school, you learn about history. Half of it is all fake anyway. You learn about nonsensical things. You don't learn about life, how to live it. They program you with certain things. You're expected to, rely on authority figures, henceforth, like the teachers. Oh, they're authority, so everything they're saying is right. And this bleeds off again to our adult life. People don't check. They don't say, okay, this person here with the big letters and after their name, they must be right because they're on TV. Without saying, well, maybe I should look into this myself. People aren't going to break out. It's very few of us who are able to see through it. Most people are so indoctrinated, so stuck in their boxes. And if you try to pull them out or show them anything that's actually true, they get angry. That's another thing. People are lulled into being lied to from the get-go. Lying about this, lying about that. Children are lied to consistently by their parents about, let's say, I don't know, if you want to start off with Santa Claus or whatever kind of possible religious philosophy that they might follow. these people are bad because they believe in that, and you got to hate these people because their belief system is wrong. And so this whole mechanism here starts at a really, really young age, and it just gets worse as people get older. They can't break out of it. Once it's put in your head at a young age like that, it's nearly impossible to get out. The ones that do, I mean, look, I grew up in a totally indoctrinated household. There's no doubt about it. And but as I got older, I started to question everything. Everything. I was like, well, why this? And why that? And why this? And why that? One of the first things I ever did when I was becoming aware of anything, I wrote a book. It was called America Under Control. And it was just stuff that I was seeing through my own observations. You can't get it anymore. In fact, it wasn't even really published. I think I did a self-publishing thing for a while. I don't even know if it's available anymore. But when I had wrote that, I let people read it, and they said, Greg, if this gets out, you're going to be assassinated. And I actually did try to get it published, and no one was interested in it at the time. So like I said, I think I did this is many, 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 many years ago. But anyway, it's all about control. It's all about indoctrination, unfortunately. And I tell people, look, this is a natural selection going on here. If you're able to see through it, able to take these concepts, and I mean, just going back to crude oil, looking at what they do to crude oil to keep it propped up. I mean, it's in our face. And, just these little things to try to raise people's awareness. And the silence of it is just deafening. You don't hear it. You don't hear anything about this from the mainstream media or anything like that. It's all about a script, a particular, narrative. And that's what people need to do. Turn it off. Turn it off. Start watching shows like this. And you'll understand, maybe, I hope at least, what's actually going on.
So we got a few more minutes. I want to ask you, what do you think are the most important philosophies or mindsets for this age that we're headed into?
Well, I want people to, number one, realize that our most valuable asset is each other. That's number one. Something we're not each other's enemies, although they try to make it seem like we are each other's enemies, based on a whole bunch of things here. They want to divide us, no matter how they can do it, by religion, by race, by color, by age, you name it. Realize that together, if we band together, like-minded people band together, we have strength. This is why they don't like bands of people getting together, why they want to keep people separated by any manner that they possibly can. Social distancing would be a good one. And there's going to be more of this here. They don't want like-minded people getting together to discuss issues. So understanding that, realize that, we're important, and we're important to each other. And this market and everything connected to it may be interesting and fun. And for me, again, it's more of a competition, the market, for me. But what I try to do is try to make people understand that they don't have to just sit back and do nothing. There is action that they can take. Instead of suffering, there is just some basic things they can do to maybe make the system work for them. But again, going back to what I said, it's about understanding how important we are to each other, how much we really do need each other. Make a difference. You want to start making a difference? Go out today, take a walk. And if you happen to cross paths with someone, just wave to them. Say hello to that person. How many of my neighbors here, I can tell you, I walk around my neighborhood. If I did not say hello to them, they would just walk by with their face turned down. This is the people have been stuck again in their little boxes. Just, make people realize that, there's someone else out here that maybe is a nice person. Go do something nice for someone. Don't even ask for a reward. Just as a stupid example, my neighbor here on my right side, I noticed that he had a tree that was kind of leaning over. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go fix that guy's tree. I went over there and I clipped his tree for him, and I put a new tie up. I didn't ask for anything. I didn't even tell him I did it. And all of a sudden, his son came by and said, hey, did you fix the tree? And I was like, yeah. He goes, wow, that was so nice of you. And he hands me a gift. Didn't expect it. I didn't even tell him I did it. But do nice things for people. Go out of your way to do it. It's got to start somewhere. So why not start with us? Why don't we just start embracing that kind of a philosophy? Okay, that we are important, that we need each other, that we should care about each other and love each other. It's really true. There's so much power and strength in that. it can overcome pretty much anything, but we're not being allowed to do that. We are being told that we're each other's enemies. We need to hate these people because of that, and these people are bad because of that. Again, it's a simple mechanism that's gone on since time immemorial: divide and conquer, and it always works. It's a terrible thing. Again.
Last question is, what are the most important success philosophies for the new age to break out?
Well, again, just going back to understanding that, what you're seeing is not real if you're following the mainstream narrative here. And just try to raise awareness. Try to realize what's going on around you. When you hear some kind of authority figure tell you something, instead of accepting it, look into it. Do your own work. Do your own homework. It's not that hard today. And you will find that most of it is just garbage. It's all fake. It's all propaganda. There's always an agenda behind it. And just embrace each other. That's the biggest philosophy, the moving forward here. Understanding how important we really are and how much we really do need each other.
Greg Mannarino, one of my favorite guests to speak to on this channel. For everyone listening, if you haven't yet, go ahead, give Greg a subscribe right there down below. Now, if you want Greg to get the self-published version of America Under Control, what you got to do is comment down below and let Greg know, and maybe we'll be able to pirate some of those copies. So make sure you hit the like button on this video right over there. Greg, any final words?
No, I think we covered a lot here. Very important video, very important interview. Lots of good stuff here. Lots of important stuff. I hope people share it. I really do. I hope they start to talk about these things. Again, raise your awareness. We're not going to get through to everyone, and I think we know that. And a lot of people are going to get angry at you if you try to show them even a shred of truth. They can't handle it. They're so used to being lied to that when they hear truth or they see it, they get angry. I mean, I think all of us have seen this before, but don't give up. Keep pushing, keep talking about things, talk to like-minded people, get together with like-minded people. And again, get stuff like this video out there so people can hear it.
All right, you heard it. Make sure you hit the like button, share this video, give us a comment down below, and we'll see you next time.